if that talented kid ever leaves this world before I do. I honestly don't know how I'd take it.
When you think of Michael Jordan, the first words that come to mind are usually killer instinct and ruthless competitor. He wasn't the type to hand out compliments freely, and most of the stories we hear are about the players he disrespected, bullied, or outright hated. But here's the twist: every now and then, Jordan let his guard down. He showed admiration, even respect, for a select group of players from his own era. These weren't casual shout-outs. These were rare glimpses into the mind of the most competitive athlete ever, telling us who he thought truly measured up. And when Jordan himself calls you special, that means something. These are the guys Michael Jordan actually liked. Before he became his airness, Michael Jordan was a kid watching the original master of the sky, Julius Erving. The glide, the grace, the way Dr. J made the game look like poetry, Jordan soaked all of that in. He didn't just copy moves, he absorbed an entire approach to basketball. Dr. J played like the rim was a finish line and the baseline was a stage. Jordan felt that in his bones. He studied the hang time, the body control, the way Erving could twist a layup into a work of art and turn a routine fast break into a memory. And as Jordan's own career took off, the respect grew beyond highlights. It evolved into admiration for how Erving handled the spotlight once the cheers faded, how he carried superstardom without letting it devour his life.
People say, where's Dr. J? That is what I can see myself, and that's what I would want myself to do once I step away from the game of the basketball, get out of the spotlight, and yet, try to get to a normal life and watch my kids grow.
Jordan's talking about more than retirement. He's talking about identity. The world wanted Dr. J forever, but Julius picked family, privacy, and peace. That mattered to MJ. It's easy to chase the applause. It's harder to choose quiet and to do it with dignity. When Jordan says he can see himself taking the same path, you hear how deeply he admires the way Dr. J closed the curtain. In a league that worships the present tense, Jordan saluted the man who showed him how to step away with grace. It's the full circle respect. The kid who learned to fly from Erving's highlights grew into the champion who respected Erving's values. For Jordan, that balance, spectacle on the court, humility off it, was the real blueprint. And while he admired the pioneers who taught him to fly, he also respected the ones who proved you could win by outthinking everyone in the room. If you want to understand how Michael defines respect, look at how he talks about Larry Bird. Jordan hates fluff. He loves results. Larry delivered both, just without the flash. He didn't need a 45-inch vertical to own a game. He needed angles, timing, and a jumper that didn't care who was guarding him. Bird was the guy who would tell you exactly where he was going, then get there anyway. He weaponized footwork and patience, beat you with his mind, and finished the job with ice in his veins. Jordan loved that kind of basketball cruelty. No wasted motion, no mercy, just mastery.
I think Larry's the epitome of what I saw myself walking away from the game and getting out of the spotlight. You don't see much of Larry now. I think that's something that he chose.
Back in Indiana and cool with it.
Which isn't bad. I like that. I really admire him for doing that.
The respect runs on two tracks. On the court, Bird was the cerebral assassin. No wasted motion, no wasted words. Winning with an economy that made the game look simple and inevitable. Off the court, he chose normalcy over noise, moving back into a quieter life on his terms. That's a theme with MJ. He admires the players who dominated the hardwood and then refused to be swallowed by the spotlight afterward. Bird represented mastery in the game and maturity beyond it. To Jordan, that combination, precision between the lines, perspective beyond them, separates the truly great from the merely famous. It's why his praise for Bird never feels like nostalgia. It reads like a standard. And when someone marries skill with substance like that, Jordan's antenna goes up. But he didn't only admire mental control, he prized total control, the ability to conduct a game like an orchestra. Which brings us to somebody else. Michael was never impressed by just size. He respected skill, versatility, and impact. That's why Hakeem Olajuwon sits in a special place whenever Jordan talks about big men. Hakeem wasn't just a center who scored, he was a center who did everything. Front the post, switch onto guards, erase layups, turn rebounds into fast breaks, and then drop the dream shake like a signature on victory.
Olajuwon, he was in the top 10 in 5 categories: steals, rebounds, block shots, scoring, and shooting percentage. To have a big guy of his size to be in the top 10 in steals. Now you can assume that he would be in blocks, which to me shows versatility of what type of guy he really was.
That's pure basketball admiration from a man who judged greatness by completeness. Jordan loved players with no weak corners, and Hakeem was the blueprint for a two-way skyscraper. The footwork looked like ballet, the hands looked like a guard's, and the IQ looked like a coach's. It's the kind of all-court authority Jordan recognizes on sight. If you could own every possession at either end, MJ didn't just respect you, he studied you. From mastery in the post to mayhem everywhere else, Jordan's admiration also extended to the rare teammate whose chaos hid amongst devotion. Jordan was brutal on teammates who didn't meet his standard, which is exactly why his respect for Dennis Rodman says so much. Rodman was unpredictable off the floor, but inside the lines, he was pure devotion to winning. Effort, energy, extra possessions, non-negotiables in MJ's world. Rodman turned rebounds into oxygen. He weaponized hustle, and he never treated the dirty work like dirt.
His dresses doesn't bother me. His hair doesn't bother me. Sure, I mean, he's gonna go wacko every now and then. We've come to live with that. We've come to accept that. But you can't find another player on the basketball court that works just as hard as Dennis Rodman. Gives 110%, dives at loose balls, even if he can't get them. That's Dennis Rodman.
That isn't tolerance, that's respect. Jordan didn't care about the clubs, the headlines, or the circus. He cared that, on a random Tuesday in February, Rodman would lay out for a 50. 50 ball like the season depended on it. That's how champions behave. Rodman was a specialist, yes, but in Chicago, his specialty was winning. With Jordan, the fastest way to earn admiration was to do the thankless things like they were priceless. And it wasn't just grinders who got love. Sometimes it was the mirror image who studied every move until the reflections matched. Jordan rarely admitted anyone could beat him one-on-one. Then Kobe Bryant arrived, a mirror with the same obsession. It wasn't just admiration, it was recognition. Kobe didn't borrow Jordan's moves, he memorized them. Footwork, cadence, shoulder feints, mid-post angles, stolen? Sure. But in MJ's language, that was the purest form of respect.
Who would I want to play one-on-one? That list is very long. I don't think I lose. Other than Kobe Bryant, because he steals all my moves.
It's a joke and a compliment wrapped together. Jordan saw the work behind the resemblance. He respected that Kobe didn't just want to win, he wanted to win like Jordan. There's no higher compliment you can pay to an artist than to learn the brushstrokes and try to paint the same masterpiece. Kobe's obsession mirrored MJ's own, and that's why the nod from Jordan means so much here. It wasn't about friendship, it was about shared fire. But Jordan's admiration wasn't limited to clones of himself. He had space in his heart for the smooth stylists who made the net sound like silk. When Jordan talks about George Gervin, there's a softness to it, an appreciation for finesse and timing. Gervin didn't bully the rim, he caressed it. The finger roll wasn't just a move, it was a mood. Every takeoff looked unhurried, every finish looked inevitable, like the ball had been told a secret on the way up. And for one season, Jordan got a front row seat to the lesson: how to slice a defense without ever raising your voice. He watched how Iceman changed speeds inside a single dribble, how he used hips and shoulders to open tiny windows that felt like trapdoors, how he took a crowded lane and turned it into an empty hallway. The scoring wasn't loud until you checked the box score and realized he'd been whispering 30 the whole night. To a young Jordan, that was graduate school in rhythm.
Not that he couldn't keep up, it was his time to step away from the game. You know, I was very fortunate to play with him for that 1 year. If I could have had George in his prime alongside of me, we would have presented problems.
That's a gorgeous what if. Imagine prime Iceman and peak Jordan on the same wing. Footwork doubled, touch doubled, tempo doubled. Jordan loved power when it was necessary, but with Gervin he admired the feel, that sixth sense for when to accelerate and when to float, when to glide and when to knife. Gervin made the game look easy in a way only geniuses can. Jordan recognized the difference between easy and effortless. Gervin was the latter. And once you've seen that kind of elegance up close, it sticks with you. It becomes part of your internal metronome. From quiet mastery to full-court command, there was another artist Jordan always saluted: the smile, the show, and the no-look pass that turned courts into stage sets. Jordan measures legends by control, how a player bends the game to his will and gets everyone else to move in rhythm. Magic Johnson did that better than anyone at his position and MJ never pretended otherwise. Magic didn't just rack up assists, he organized basketball. He turned 5 strangers into choreography on command. One possession, he's a blur in transition. The next, he's posting a mismatch. The next, he's pointing to a spot you haven't seen yet and delivering the ball there on time like he mailed it yesterday. It wasn't numbers, it was order. If you played with Magic, you felt taller. If you played against him, you felt late. It's teasing, but the affection is real. Jordan and Magic are braided into NBA history, rival dynasties, then a torch passed in 1991 when the Bulls beat the Lakers. MJ admired Magic's leadership, his poise, his ability to command a game without chasing 40 points. Control the tempo, control the series. That's the language Jordan speaks, and he heard it every time Magic dribbled past half court. To Jordan, Magic's greatness lived in how everyone else suddenly played better around him. Role players looked like stars, stars looked like conductors, and the whole thing felt inevitable by the fourth quarter. And yet, for all his love of orchestras and order, Jordan also had room to appreciate kamikaze courage. The guys who took on any assignment, even the ones way above their weight class. Yes, their friendship cracked later. But during their prime years, Jordan genuinely liked Charles Barkley. Why? Because Chuck never ducked a challenge. He wasn't built like a prototype. He played like a thunderstorm. Undersized? So what? He'd still try to move mountains. Barkley's game was a dare, meet him at the rim, meet him on the glass, meet him in the open floor. And he'd keep coming, again and again, like a weather system you can't just wait out. Jordan respects anyone who lives in a permanent stance, knees bent, eyes up, ready to fight the next fight before the last one is even cold.
Charles is a defensive stopper, so the first thing he does, he breaks down in this defensive position with hands up. Everything looks technically right. And I just laugh. I say, when in the hell are you going to start playing defense? And who taught you how to get in a defensive stance? And I had to pass it. But that's the type of guy, he would take on a challenge, even though he was not up to the challenge. He didn't care, and that's just him.
That's Jordan's humor with a heartbeat underneath it. He's poking the bear because he respects the bear. Barkley took every challenge, even if physics said he shouldn't. He'd square up against quicker guards, bigger centers, whoever was next, no flinch, no foot off the gas. That kind of stubborn courage is exactly the thing Jordan loves. You can lose the matchup, but you never lose the moment you stood there and said, "I'll take him." In MJ's world, that counts. It tells him something about your wiring. It tells him you're built for the hard parts, the parts that don't make posters but do make champions. Of course, respect didn't always come from showdowns or jokes. Sometimes it came from silent chess, finding the counters, closing the air, making greatness uncomfortable. Out of the entire Bad Boys era, there was one Piston who earned Michael's respect in a different way. Joe Dumars. Not with cheap shots, not with trash talk, with patience, angles, and discipline. Joe didn't try to stop Jordan so much as to shape him, steering him toward help, taking away first options, forcing counters. That's how you impress someone who knows every answer. Make him change the test mid-flight. Where other defenders swung hammers, Joe used scalpels, body position to shade the drive, quiet hands to bother the gather, early footwork to clog the launch lane. He didn't chase blocks or steals for the box score. He chased tiny detours that turned Jordan's A plan into B, then C, then D. Possession after possession, series after series, Joe treated guarding MJ like problem-solving under pressure, a midterm that never ended.
He thought well. I mean, he was very smart about his defenses. I think he approaches the game as trying to dissect his opponents and try to find weaknesses or try to force them to do things that they didn't feel comfortable doing, and he introduced certain tricks to make me, expand on my talents as an offensive player. I mean, that's why I consider him the best.
Read the end again. That's why I consider him the best. That's the Pistons we're talking about, the team Jordan hated most. Joe is the exception because he guarded with a plan, not a punch. He didn't try to overwhelm Jordan with force. He tried to outlast him with choices, turn down the middle, bait the pull-up, give the illusion of space, then close it late. Jordan adores competitors who understand the how of winning, who think the game as fiercely as they fight it. Joe understood, and he made Jordan better by insisting that every possession be solved, not overpowered. Even at peak hostility between franchises, you could see the mutual acknowledgement. Two professionals meeting at the hard edge of the craft, testing limits, sharpening each other. And long before NBA chess and playoff scars, there was origin energy. The heroes who made a middle school kid in North Carolina believed the sky was a reasonable destination. For all the idols and rivals on this list, David Thompson occupies a different place. This is the childhood hero, the one who made young Mike look at the TV and think, I want to be that. Skywalker wasn't just a nickname, it was an invitation. Thompson made elevation feel like a birthright, not a trick. The lift, the quick strike off the floor, the fearless takeoff in traffic, those weren't highlights to Jordan. They were instructions. And when the biggest day of Jordan's basketball life arrived, the day his career became a museum piece, he chose Thompson to stand beside him. That choice wasn't about hype or headlines. It was about paying a debt that started in a living room in North Carolina, when a kid saw possibility in a man who seemed to float.
And everybody's saying, well, why did you pick David Thompson? I know why. David knows why, and maybe you guys don't know why, but as I grew up in North Carolina, I was 11 years old, 1974, I think, when you guys won the championship. And I was an anti-Carolina guy. I hated UNC. And here I ended up at UNC. But I was in love with David Thompson. Not just for the game of basketball, but in terms of what he represented.
That's the purest respect there is, before endorsements, before banners, before being MJ. Thompson represented possibility. He showed a kid exactly how high a person could rise, how light a person could feel, and how far a person could go with a ball and a dream. He didn't just model a move, he modeled a mindset. Leap first, and trust that work will keep you in the air. When Jordan invited Thompson into his Hall of Fame moment, it was gratitude in its most honest form, an acknowledgement that greatness is a lineage. Jordan didn't pick David Thompson for politics. He picked him to say, out loud and forever, that his own story began with someone else's wings. And that, more than any stat, tells you how deeply the respect runs. And that gratitude ties this whole story together. Pioneers, rivals, grinders, mirrors, each one shining a light on what Jordan values most. Bottom line, Jordan's respect follows a clear pattern. He admires the pioneers who wrote the script before him, Irving, Gervin, Baylor. He salutes the rivals who mastered control and fundamentals, Bird, Magic, Hakeem. He loves the grinders who do the dirty work to win, Rodman and Dumars. And he recognizes the kindred spirits who chase the same obsession, Kobe. This isn't casual praise, it's a portrait of what Michael Jordan values most: control, craft, courage, and the decision to live with purpose on and off the court. Use this as a reset anywhere in the video. It flows cleanly between any two sections without breaking momentum. Michael Jordan never handed out flowers just to be nice. If your name shows up here, it's because you earned it, possession by possession, series by series. Whether it's legends like Magic and Larry, rivals like Joe Dumars and Hakeem, or wild cards like Dennis Rodman, and even the complicated bond with Charles Barkley, the respect always comes from the same place: battle scars. These aren't players he merely thought were good. They're the ones who forced him to sharpen the blade, add a counter, and find another gear. They carved out space in his mind, and more importantly, in his words. And with Jordan, that's the highest compliment available. To impress the man who spent a career trying to destroy everyone in his path isn't approval, it's legacy. End card beat. If Jordan's compliments are this rare, the names that made this cut tell you everything about what greatness really looks like.